Hello, everyone, and welcome to the public space. Today, it was a request this week. Someone sent a super chat and said, Jeff, can you do a report about incels? Since you are black pilled and they are black pilled too. To be honest, I knew what the term meant, but I didn't know the culture, and I discovered an entire internet subculture, and we're gonna talk about our view of it with Frame Games. Are you doing Frame Games?
I'm doing well. You just discovered the incel cultural like section of the internet. This is like a new thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that there were incels and I knew what it was about, but I didn't know that there were social features that were particular to the group. For example, I didn't know that this community is all about self-deprecation and blackpilling, and people always start their post by saying, well, I'm not a very intelligent guy, or, well, I am part of a race that is much less likely to get women. They always start with the negative. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting. Actually, I guess I'm curious what your like deep sea expedition into this world. You may know more about it than I do. I guess I have only, I guess, a passing understanding of it. I think I was first introduced to it back when I used to read Manosphere blogs, and there was a writer who used to link to a popular forum that I, for like 2 years, had no idea that it was like an incel forum. I only read like kind of the hot takes on right wing politics that seemed to be there, and then someone told me it was an incel forum, and I didn't believe it at first, and then everything suddenly clicked, and it was like, oh, okay, that they're saying these things unironically.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating subculture. And my essential thesis today is the incels are largely right. That doesn't mean I will stand by anything that an incel has ever said. But what I'm saying is the main message that the incels have understood and are telling between each other, which is we are the loser of a system of competition, and there's no way out, and we need to be blackpilled about it. That's largely correct. In fact, I had predicted this before knowing that there were incel communities. And I'm just amazed that just out of the theory of biology, you can come with conclusions like you look at the sex ratio and the way females date with men, and you're like, okay, there's gonna be a ton of males alone who will never get females if this data is correct. So I kind of theoretically predicted incels, and then I find a forum where they are essentially telling themselves that truth, which is that in the current societal behavior and structure of family, there are going to be dead end males. There are going to be males who will never experience sex or attraction, and that's just the way it is. It's undeniable. It's a reality. It's a mathematical reality.
Yeah, so I'm actually glad we're talking about this tonight, because every once in a while you kind of have to just step back and ask yourself, what is the meaning of life? So I have to say, when I first heard that that forum that I had been trafficking in was an incel forum, uh, after developing something of a like a lurker's bond with the posters there. Um, there is, to the straight white or to the straight male, like red-blooded male, the idea of even being associated with someone who is involuntarily celibate, is there is a visceral reaction, I think, in the body, because it represents the worst case scenario for what the sort of inclusive fitness model of evolutionary psychology would call for, right? You just, not only have you been unsuccessful, but you are at the point where you have abandoned all hope, and your body comes to reflect that. Everything about you comes to reflect that. And that's sort of where I wanted to steer the conversation. But maybe I'll sit back for a little bit, and I'm curious, if you want to take that farther, or if you want me to respond to the brazen claim that you make that the incels are right.
Well, you can respond to it. However, I want this video to meme within the incel community, and so I've adapted myself to the incel, and incels always start with a black pill. And so let me drop my black pill before we begin. Here it is, and it's straight from biological knowledge. And I haven't seen that posted in any of the incel posts, so I think it's gonna be new knowledge for them, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be a good black pill, and I hope that this will be my honorary introduction into the incel community, even if in fact technically I'm the opposite of incel. I have a constant supply of women coming to me, but to integrate myself in the community, I will drop a black pill. So mathematically and biologically, I predict that even if incels were to exist for millions of years, there is no evolutionary mechanism to get rid of them in the population. So here's your black pill of the day. Incel is an infinite phenomenon. There will constantly be, as a byproduct of the sexual cycle of humans, there will always be rejected males that will go on to suffer through their whole life and that will remain incels. There is no way where the balance between male and female will be changed to adjust. You cannot get out of it. We will continue producing 50% male, 50% female, and throw away a large part of the male population.
All right. Let me tell you where you're wrong. Walked right into my trap because I just happened to have an extensive conversation on a very adjacent topic this week, which I'll tell you about in a second. But here's what you're going to need to explain. Your theory fails to account for time dynamics in the life cycle of the average man and how the life cycle of man, the struggle of man, is not a linear rise followed by a dramatic drop in death. It is the constant rise and fall in your sexual market value. Good things happen, you're the man, but maybe you peaked in high school and now you're done. Maybe you were a lovable loser in the beginning and then you had a nice, you inherited a lot of money, or you started working out, or you got a good job, and suddenly in this phase of life, you have sexual maturity. And so while at any given moment in time, your math checks out, you will need to explain how, I guess you'll need to explain how time dynamics can't make it so that at some point in every man's life, he has the opportunity to get with some woman.
Oh, well, I'm not denying that. Essentially, what I'm saying, and I've said that in a previous video in response to the super chat, what I'm saying is there are probably incels who are in the incel community who are not true incels, and maybe things will change. And in fact, I have post, and we'll look at the post. It happens. Someone thought he was an incel forever. He meets a person. Now, it's pretty hilarious when we look at the post because it's like, I have this girl, she's 19-year-old, she's fucking hot and she's very deep and philosophical, and she just sent me a SMS saying that I was cute. And so I'm gone. This is my last post in the community. I'm like, you might want to keep your username in that forum. It's not because a girl sends you a message saying that you're cute that you will have found your soulmate and that you will last forever. Now, what you say is right. There are some incels that are not true incels, and in fact, they have a word for it. We call them fake cells. They are essentially people who want the social stimuli of being in a community with the incels, but they truly can get out of this situation. And the true incels, what they say is, you don't belong here. You are a fake cell. You've already had sex, so that doesn't count, or you are beautiful enough to have sex. What I'm saying is there is a bottom of the barrel. And this bottom of the barrel is correct in stating we are the bottom of the barrel and we're never going to get out of there.
Okay, a few things. There's also a bottom of, there are some very unattractive women in life. And all you need to do is at some point over the course of your 84, years of life, or whatever the average life expectancy is now, in is at some point, for one shining moment, to get to the very bottom of the barrel of the female dating pool. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to climb a mountain. You basically just need to trip over a molehill. And so it's very rare in life to see somebody who has gone through an entire, say, 40-year existence, who never once had that moment where they got beyond being a loser. In fact, this is what was so compelling to me about the Mundane Matt story that broke this week. Like, sorry, I'm taking this in a slightly different direction, but have you followed this? Like, what's been going on?
I
with
didn't. So update me on it. What's happening?
Oh my God, it's crazy. So, there was this stream that was happening. I guess Ralph was having this stream with like Medicare and Keemstar and I don't know, like a bunch of other quartering, a bunch of other guys. And they accused Matt of flagging their videos. And for about an hour and a half on this stream, Matt is denying, swearing to God that he didn't do it. No, and you can't prove it anyway. And if I did do it, why would I come on the stream? And just as he parries all of the attacks of, the Spanish Inquisition, Ralph's co-host points out that there's a way to see whether or not you flag somebody, and that's by looking at your report history on YouTube. So basically, they kind of bullied him into sharing his screen, and then all of the false flags, a number of accounts that he had sworn just minutes earlier that he had never even heard of, or certainly never flagged, were all like revealed on screen in this live stream. And
how did he get to the point of revealing it? Why didn't he find an excuse? He was just too nervous. Or maybe he was so self-deceptive that he was actually convinced that he hadn't reported them.
There was this it was the setup that made it so. Literally spent about an hour and a half boldly and confidently swearing up and down that he had never done this, and he had a million alibis for it. And then as soon as I think Zidane said, well, you can just go to your youtube.com/report history. Here's mine. The line went dead for like 20 seconds, and everyone was like, holy shit. Holy fucking, this is happening on a live stream with like 2,000 people. Like this, it's like every liar's worst fear is to be completely pantsed and have like no alibis, no out cards in the deck. Anyway, this kind of got me down this like rabbit hole because there was so much content on this subject over the past week by people whose content I find entertaining. And what I saw in this character was like this human interest drama of like the worst case scenario, going where you never
we lost you.
Like even
You're
on bad. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you lose me?
Yeah, we lost you for 5 seconds.
Yeah, but what I thought was so compelling is like, how do you go through life without ever having that moment of being validated? Like. At some point, you win a sports league medal. At some point, a girl kisses you. At some point, something happens. And what I found so compelling about this Matt story this week was like, this is a character who embodies and has soldiered on in a almost like in a sort of brave sense, like through it all with no validation in 40 years of life, constantly destroying everything that he has ever touched. Everything he has ever built has crumbled. And yet, like, it's almost like this perfect storm of like chance that things could never go right with you and just persistence through it all. And I kind of feel like if Matt has a kid, and evidently he does, then I don't know. Tell me the character of somebody who is an incel. What is bottom of the barrel to you? What does that guy look like?
I think that Matt does have a child, and so Matt does not qualify as incel. He is a loser in many ways, and I've blocked him on Twitter because he made false allegations against me and my family. He's a fat loser and he's a disgusting human being, but he's not an incel because the bottom of the barrel. Let me try to find a picture of what that looks like. I think I have one somewhere here. The bottom of the barrel is really a fat guy with acne that way. So this guy is the bottom of the barrel. I mean, if you want to start a Magic the Gathering collection, he's your go-to guy. But this guy will have difficulties having women. And imagine this guy with autism, or this guy with schizophrenia. This guy with schizophrenia, with autism, with no job, this guy won't get a female ever.
I've seen guys like that pull puss like nothing, man. There was a guy in my high school who looked like that, and he found some medieval times girl, and it kind of worked out. Now, I guess here's what I'm saying. Someone in the chat challenged me as being, I guess, subversive for labeling Matt brave. And let me tell you, and I'm not trying to defend any of this, but the reason that I use the word brave is because this man has resisted the temptation to the dark side that your wonderful host of this show is pulling you towards, like gravity.
Wait. Were you when you were saying the moment of validation? Were you implying that mundane Matt gain your respect through the lies that he's been saying for 1 hour straight face?
No.
You were talking about Zidane. Zidane was validated in his questioning of Matt, right?
Yeah, no. When the point I was making was not that he doesn't have my respect. What I said is that I think that there is a story here. There is a low-key indie, like not mainstream distribution, but kind of art house film to be made about the life story of Mundane Matt. Okay, there is, and I'm not saying I respect it, but there's like one of these sideways, it glimmers if you kind of squint when you look at it, aspect of bravery to never win in your entire life's existence and still not succumb to the black pill.
The thing is, I see another movie from game. I see another indie movie, and this indie movie would be about a community of people who have faced the truth in a world that was trying to deceive them. So here's the thing. I look at this article. I have an article from Vox talking about incels. And it says what a woman-led incel support group can teach us about men and mental health. And so these guys, they talk about incels and their desperations. All right. And the incels are desperate and they are black-pilled, and they introduce the concept of black-pilling. And they essentially conclude by, these men, they need mental health services. What I say is, in a world where you get convinced by that kind of argument, in a world where you say, oh yeah, I need help, you are getting food. And the incel community has refused to get food because they know we don't need mental health services. We would need to be successful in a sexual market, and we won't be. And so we won't let ourselves be deceived by the Vox article or the equivalent Guardian article on the question. We're going to face reality because these articles, they propose all sorts of solutions. Oh, maybe prostitutions would help. Maybe sex robots would help. Maybe good psychiatric counseling would help. The incels have followed the path of truth. They have decided, no, a sex robot won't solve our problem. Our problem is that we are biological beings. We were shaped and sculpted through evolution to be wanting baby makers, and the physical universe denies us the chance of doing our only function. That is facing the
Well,
truth.
okay, I'm going to tackle that, but let me just preface this by saying, yeah, what strange and unusual punishment it is to have a woman-led incel therapy group. I mean, that's just like a cock tease. Like, I mean, to just dangle that bait in front of you that you can never catch. I mean, that sounds god awful. So,
It's very
you know,
weird. It's like having having a Jewish speaker talk to white nationalists. It's totally, absolutely weird.
well, I don't think there's a primal drive to fuck Jews that is like, I think there's a different dynamic there.
Ah, so
I
you're
think
talking
they
about the
share a
sexual
common
drive
emotional
here.
catharsis. Well, because that's what's driving it. It is that primal base engine that motivates biological behavior or sexually reproductive organisms behavior, and there is always, when you put a woman in front. Well, let me ask you this, actually. In your cultural anthropological survey of the incel community, have you deduced whether or not the prototypical incel man experiences transient hope in the presence of a woman who does not run from him?
It's a point by point thing. Some of them do. It happens on certain events, but they also have a cultural reaction to it, which is to say the black pill is always true. Every time you stopped believing in the black pill, you were disappointed. And so there's lots of people who describe transient hopes. But it's most of the time the community brings it back to say, oh yeah, and then did it work? Oh, no, it didn't work. Well, you should have listened to the black pill to start with.
Hey, can I ask you something? Is there an alpha dog in the incel community?
An alpha dog, someone who would be like respected and noble in some way?
Well, okay, so every tribe has its leader of the pack, right? And that's like the alpha dog. And that guy sort of has, first dibs on the spoils. He's the one people defer to when they enter the room. He's, commands the social status. Is there, every group has this, every sports team, and people who are internet personnel, there's a constant competition for status and for, to improve your lot in life so that you have the esteem, respect, and standing within your peers, and benefits accrue to those who are higher up the rank. So, the incel community is a community. I mean, is it a tournament structured like any other one? And if so, if people become king of the incels, could that be could they then achieve sufficient escape velocity to get off of, get out of the black hole of the black pill incel situation?
You're demanding for something that may not be compatible with reality. First, yes, there are well-known incels. They are the leaders of their forums, the leaders of their Discord. So there is such a thing as a leader. However, the sense of leader in that community is kind of reverted because
Oh,
they talk about the Chads, and the Chads are outside of the incel community. The Chads are truly the alpha male as you described them. But the
right.
problem is this community is built around
Oh
a um
no. I see what you're getting at. Yeah.
in group preference that defines the success as being outside. The Chad is the
Right.
one who has success.
Oh God. So there's a race to the bottom.
Yeah,
So like the people on top are the people oh no. Oh, that's
I
really
love
bad.
it. It's the first self-entertaining loop that I see, which drives to the bottom instead of to the top. As an evolutionist, I always think about evolution, and I'm like, how do things get better? And these guys, they program their own cultural stimuli so that things get worse.
All right, we'll deal with this one, JF. I got an idea for you. Horseshoe theory for incels. What if you go so far into incel, you become such a king and lord, you are so emperor of the people who can't get fucked, that you are horseshoed into the most fuckable man on the planet? Is that possible?
that you would need to be in a circular universe, and I'm afraid that the system of between depression and being a Chad, I think it's a linear system. It's not a curved universe. Frame game. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Remember, you've seen Austin Powers, right? Remember that? Who's that guy? Verna Troy. All right.
I
Riddle me
don't
this,
remember.
JF. All right. From what I remember, Vern Troy. I think you're gonna recognize when I pull it up here. Vern Troy girlfriend. All right. Check this out. I can do a screen share. The hell out of here. No
Well,
way.
just give me the link and I can illustrate
okay.
it.
If you let's see. I'm trying to pull up pictures. Okay. It's just a Google search and I'll send it to you in the Hangout.
Now, while you do that, I want to start showing some of my picture because I want the incels to know that the system of reproduction we find ourselves in is kind of a transitory system between one extreme and the other. One extreme being monogamy and like monogamy for life with the same person, and the other extreme being institutionalized polygamy. And I wanted to show you this. This is actually a reality TV show called Sister Wives about a guy who has 4 wives. And that's an illustration that the fact that these communities exist, and I hear that it's relatively popular in some Mormon circles. And these guys are from the Utah, I believe, but they have moved. But the fact that these communities can exist and that this system of reproduction can exist, it is a testament to what I've said earlier, which is that biology will not push you away from incelling, because it may be a very pleasurable image here to see 4 happy wives with 1 happy man, and to a certain extent some of these wives have had a good opportunity there. Look at this girl. This girl is dating above her waistline, if you will. She's dating someone who she probably wouldn't deserve in a monogamous society. And so this looks all good, but what this picture doesn't tell you is that for each picture like this, there are 3 men who are alone. And biology forces these 3 men to live. Biology is such that everyone will always have 50% male, 50% female babies. And so the fact that the reproductive cycle of humans has already converged in some communities like this toward polygamy, and that it's an asymmetric polygamy, which is many female want to fuck 1 male. It shows us that what's happening to the incel is just a transition between the traditional state of society, which was assumed monogamy, although it was not true monogamy, but we were trying to converge toward a close to perfect monogamy. Now society has taken a completely different direction. We are slowly marching toward the mode of polygamy, where there is 1 male with 3, 4, 5 females. Now, the fact that the sister wives do it all at the same time, that is, in the structure of time, these women, they really share the same men at the same time. That's not really important from a biological perspective, because what the Western woman is doing right now is exactly the same. It's just sequential in time. So the Western woman dates a man, leaves him. Dates a man, makes a baby, leaves him. Dates another man, makes a baby, leaves him. So the structure is the same. It's just spread throughout time, whereas the sister wives, they do it at the same time.
I understand what you're saying, but there's that Eminem song, right? Like, everybody's got that one shot to blow. So like, here is Mini Me's. This was his girlfriend. Okay, I'm gonna screen share on my thing here. One sec. All right, Mini Me's girlfriend. Oh, where's that? It was the second link, and I just pulled it up on my screen share too.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That one.
He's dating above his grade.
He's not just dating above his grade, he's dating 3 feet above his height. He's like 2 feet tall.
Wait,
And
are
she's
you telling? Is that in the movie, or are you telling me he's
no, that's
actually
real
dating this
life.
girl?
Yes, he was dating
Jesus
this girl for a
Christ!
while.
I don't like the full jeans outfit, but on her it looks pretty good.
Works for me. I mean, in Minecraft, out of respect for Mrs. Frame, but this is a prototypically, this is an attractive female archetype,
Yeah.
and this is a guy who I bet has it 10 times worse than what you would if you were to do like a discounted cash flow analysis of like the average lifetime sexual earnings that you would expect of the average incel. This dude you would predict would be way worse than them. But there is power to improving your lot in life. And what I would say is, okay, can I bounce a few theories off of you? Just kind of theories about
You're trying to white pill our incel listeners with this little small person dating this chick.
Yes, what is it? Alt. I'm trying to say like like the Nawalt and Najalt and not all ins. Look, it's like this. Here's my theory on this. I actually have a general theory of cucking that I think it's sort of a working theory, but here, it goes something like this. The drive to cuck is one in which there is a cathartic pleasure in eliminating the pain of hope, and that the hope is pain. That's what the phrase "dare to dream" really means. To maintain a belief that is so dissonant with all sensory experience is a tremendously painful thing to maintain, because you are getting constant feedback that you are unsuccessful, and there is a pressure to just concede, to lay down and die, and that is what is the peaceful aspect of death. Death, for those who are long-term chronic sufferers of terminal disease, is a relief. When you hear their close family members talk about it, they're happy if their old grandmother or mother even dies, if it's an appropriate time in life, because it's a recognition that the peace of giving up is a more peaceful life than the white knuckled struggle of the Sisyphus story, that is the perennial pushing of the boulder uphill against all odds. But what I would say is that this to me is the epitome of the worst possible outlook in life, because what you are doing is you are choosing the narcotic. You are doing the thing that feels good. Good for these guys that they took the easy way out, and they've abandoned the struggle. They're so far gone. They've gone through their 5 stages of grief, and they're at acceptance. But the problem is, like, they have traded humanity for heroin. This is the heroin struggle. Sorry, I'll pause and let you get in.
No. I mean, it's first I want to deny the mini-me claim. The mini-me case does not show anything. However, it does show something about an error that incels are doing. Incels, they keep repeating in their forum, and that's actually laid out as a theory. It's an official theory that some of them defend. It's the theory of looks. That I think they give it a name, the theory of looks something. Looks is not what matters in dating, and the mini-me case is an illustration of that. The Donald Trump case is another illustration of that. Looks are just one part of the multidimensional set of reasons why a female is attracted to a male, and money, success, and social rewarding are up there. They are sometimes more important than looks, or at least as important as looks. Now, as far as your message for numbing, Um, Essentially, the theory that being black pilled for incels will be the equivalent of being on heroin. But the problem is, heroin is wrong because it drives you away from the normal and the truthful state of the world. In other words, heroin truly is a deceptive signal to your brain. For an incel to realize that they will not have girlfriends, that is not deceptive because it's true for some of them. And so for some of them, it is simply following the truth. Now, are you telling me that we should abandon the, the truth for the hope, for the dream?
I think that there are several variants of truth, and truth is sort of a tiered system because of very strange dynamics that happen when things are technically untrue. But I call this the Wile E. Coyote effect. Yeah, you ever seen that cartoon where like Wile E. Coyote is chasing the Roadrunner, uh, and the Roadrunner goes like off a cliff and like is running so fast he makes it to the other side, and Wile E. Coyote chases him off the cliff, and he goes like 10 feet out into the air, and suddenly he looks down, realizes, "Holy shit, I'm defying the laws of physics," and that's when Wile E. Coyote falls. Okay, the reason I bring that up is because there's a funny thing that happens in under those cartoon physics, which is that he really was defying the laws of physics until he internalized that he was doing so. So this is the magic of faking it till you make it. This is the beauty in delusion, if you will. This is the rising the belief in meaning, even if there may objectively be none, you can meme it into reality through the sheer force of human will. Some would say that is the story of Donald Trump's election himself, an impossible feat only made possible through the power of memeing the dream into real life. And I just
Is
want
the
you to
thing.
pull. I'm sorry. Go
Is
on.
the thing. As a self-help tip there, what you say makes sense. And I would recommend that to most people. However, I would feel that I have walked over a boundary, which is the boundary of deception, if I was to tell that it will work all the time. I must be with the incel on this and conclude this, even this tactic will not work all the time. This is a tactic that you tell to a car seller. That's our car sellers. They improve their sales. It's like, convince yourself that you're going to sell this car and it's going to work. It works when you're up there and you're trying to get up here. But it doesn't work if you are in a system where you are faced with a pool of women who will never choose you. So I will not go with you on this because I cannot deceive the entirety of the crowd or a part of the crowd, because the reality is part of them will never have girlfriends. Look at
Well, they
this,
may not be with the
just to
present
make
version
sure
of you.
that we know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
The male-female asymmetry in the dating sphere is stunning. It's not this graph shows you essentially you have male attractiveness. So the males that are the most beautiful are at 100. The males that are the least beautiful are at 0. And same thing for females, 0 to 100. What this graph tells you is that even a female, which is a 10, she's a 1 out of 10. Okay, I want you to picture that in your head. A 1 out of 10 frame games. Do you see what I'm talking about?
I see what you're talking about, but you know what? I got a
No,
graph for you, JF.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
okay,
I want to tell you what. No, so do you
okay.
picture a 1 out of 10 female in your mind?
Oh God, I have problems with
No,
extremes because a one is very hard. So like an infinite bottom. Can we say I can picture like a 1.7? Below
no,
that, it
no, no,
starts
no, no,
looking
no,
like
no.
three-headed monsters with crazy shit happens at one, man. You know when you get to the bottom of the ocean, the normal laws of physics don't apply. I mean, I don't even want to think about a one. I mean,
I
that's
want you to close your eyes, frame game, and imagine the 1 out of 10 female. Because I'm going to state something about her that you won't believe.
I'll get down to a 1.4 I'll get close. All right, my
Okay.
submarine doesn't get that far to the bottom.
You
I feel
have
like
it in
it's
your mind. You have the
not yet.
1.4, 1.3 out of 10 female. Okay. This
Hold on.
girl,
Okay, all right, go for it.
this ugly thing that you are imagining in your head, she wants to go out only with males that are 7 out of 10 and more.
No, not only.
Well, like on average, that's what they aim for.
Well, that's what they're turned on by. But I mean, if anyone,
They
listen, drunk girls.
they won't like the Tinder account of a man who's 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. That's the asymmetry of the dating game, frame games.
Well, I actually, I disagree with it. I think what really happens is they will settle for you even though they want something more, and the sex will be really bad because they won't get any validation out of it. So their bodies won't really respond, and it'll be bad for you because you'll feel like you're not getting, like it's just a mess all the way around. Ugly people having sex with ugly people. It's just bad aesthetics. But that's it's still better. You're still achieving, the biological imperative, if that is what you choose to do with your life. What I would say is the reason that I would not, take everybody off of heroin, so to speak, and where I find common ground with you is that I wouldn't just go around willy-nilly about it, because there are other reasons to live than just sex. Even the Robert Trivers, David Buss theory of inclusive fitness, says that it's about, the maximizing in the aggregate, which includes the prospects of your kin and extended family. And so
there we are. The gay uncle hypothesis. The nice gay uncle hypothesis. The guy who only fucks asses, but somehow in his generosity toward his nieces and cousins, he improves his own evolutionary success.
All right, listen, put me on the Jumbotron. I want to see this article is like Miley Cyrus. It is going to come in like a wrecking ball on your argument. Okay, that 2'8" guy that I just showed you, this is him with another slam piece. Article from the UK Mirror: My life with 2'8" sex-obsessed mini-me. Actress treated Hollywood star. He treated her like a sex slave. He was mad for sex. Basically, like, kept her in the room having sex all day. Could not be satiated. This is him. This is her. Okay, he wasn't eking it out, man. He was throwing it down.
Frame games. It's fucking funny as an argument, but it doesn't check the logic test. I've already countered the mini-me argument. Mini-me deserves a sex slave by his monetary status and his social status.
Oh, so it's just the money. Okay, so because now what you're doing is you're saying that you are saying it is a resolute impossibility to
Let me just restart my audio engine, because I believe we are roboting. We have a robot voice, so let me restart.
You're telling me not one of those guys could have bought Bitcoin at $1.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
This is JF. My voice is now good.
All right, mine as well. I challenge you to a French off.
Oh, yes? You think you can speak French better than me?
No, but I can kind of fuck around.
All right, we're back to normal. So what were you saying about mini-me? The mini-me argument, I consider that I've smashed it.
Oh, are you kidding me? You're telling me not a single incel in that entire sub-community couldn't have bought Bitcoin at $1. They couldn't have experienced some freak windfall fortuitous event in the next 60 years of their entire existence. You think Mini-Me was born as Austin Powers' sidekick? No, man. Look, it's the same thing with that Game of Thrones dude. Who's the short guy on Game of Thrones? You know what? The Tyrion, or is Tyrion, is that his name? Tyrion, the Tyrion Lannister dude. Dude, he gives fucking TED Talks and commencement speeches about how he had to work his ass off from selling fries to making it up to the Hollywood big time. These are the men who represent the true Sisyphusian struggle and ultimate Phoenix-like triumph of the human condition, to perennially rise from the ashes and to have that one great moment in life that makes the whole damn thing worth living. This is a living example of it.
My point is not that some individual incel cannot improve his life. Maybe some can, but it's a statistical truth in face of the current dating data between male and female that for every winner there's going to be losers. It's a statistical truth.
But you are now entering my territory, which is this. It is against the odds. And there is the difference between the philosophy of giving up and persisting through it all. The difference between impossibility and against the odds. My counsel to the incels is by any means possible. Can I tell you a story about the African chicklet? Are you familiar with the life of the average male African chicklet? It's fascinating. I fell in love with this story.
I guess.
Okay. The male sorry. I'll cede the floor to you. I feel like I've been talking too. I'm really wired, man.
And can you change your screen share? Because I was focusing on that female too much.
She's distractingly attractive. This guy's point. I'm sorry. All right, sorry. Do you want to respond or take it in a different direction?
Okay. I mean, if you had a point to make, you can make it, or then we can move on to looking at some posts by the incel community.
Let's do that. I'll come back to the chicklet if we have time.
All right. Now, before we do that, there's lots of super chats, so let's read them. Alfonso Beltran says, okay, I will not read this message here. Alze News Network sends $50. He says, I am back, and so are the shekels. Thank you so much, Alze. Sean Taylor sends $10. Thank you so much. He says, incels need to do SS and GOMAD while young to make sure they aren't physically inferior, engage in competitive things and do well at them, use escorts and fake it until you make it, boys. We certainly are farming incels in our society, and perhaps in a society that would impose a little more on our youth, maybe there would be less of them. Maybe we would farm attractive, physically fit, and otherwise intelligent or successful males. Unfortunately, we live in a society where people can be essentially pushed into hopelessness and dependence on the state, on the social welfare state and all of its services.
Yeah, are you familiar with what's happening in Japan with the herbivore culture?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. So that's actually the term for it is herbivore. Let me see if I can pull up a link.
They essentially just eat plants.
Well, no, it's like an analogy. It's to what they're to the utter absence of manliness and testosterone in their existence. They are men. So it looks like there's actually a Wikipedia link for herbivore men. And here's how it's described. Herbivore men, or grass-eating men, is a term used in Japan to describe men who have no interest in getting married or finding a girlfriend. The term is also used to describe young men who have lost their manliness. According to 2006, it roughly translates to the act of living alone and performing tasks independently of other people, often associated with the gaming culture and I guess other sort of neat, like not in employment or education or training lifestyles. So, but it's so pervasive that there's a whole class of men that have just totally dropped out of Japanese society.
Frame Games, I predicted this. I mean, I was on a Discord Ask Me Anything session, and they laughed at me. I said that there was a vast section of the Japanese population that were total cocks who didn't know how to handle women, didn't want to, and didn't have the mental capacities to establish a family life and be reproductive. I call them cocks because I didn't know about the term herbivore, but I predicted this phenomena. And the guy who was talking to me, who was a leftist, it seems, he was like, "You don't know much about Japan. Where do you base this evaluation from?" I base it from knowing a handful of Japanese guys who were exactly like this. They were herbivore. I had to teach
Yeah.
them how to handle their own girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you could probably make a statistical inference based on case selected cultures, that the more case selected you are, the more predisposed you are towards, what is it, dating effort rather than mating effort. The less imbued, the less equipped you are to compete in a tournament structure. And so I mean, I would predict that would be, a persistent trend in any population group that has lower than average testosterone levels. And since we see testosterone levels dropping intergenerationally persistently over the past 3 decades, at least, then you would predict more and more of this. Well, it gets back to, what was the movie you reviewed with Wesley Snipes?
With Wesley Snipes. I'm not good at actor names.
It's the futuristic one, not Blade Runner.
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. We're approaching an era of sexual Demolition Man, right? Where there's going to be more and more men who just cannot compete at all. That simply being somebody who can hold frame while supporting Trump is suddenly a abundance signal. It's suddenly a testament to testicular fortitude. And I mean, I feel like that's happening now. Like, such a substantial portion of the population is seeming to have declining testosterone levels that average people seem superpowered, I think, relative to what you might predict in certain environments. I mean, there's a lot of hipster environments where, the guys who are like, king of the mill there are not exactly like, they're pulling down decently attractive women, but it's just because the men around them have sort of dropped out. They are scared to compete because of how crushing it would be to the worldview to have hope, and to have the hope go out. They would rather not even start the fire.
All right. Good Times says Neanderthal women had no problems getting laid, or did they? I have no idea. Alfonso Beltran says, if you think we have an incel problem, please see Japanese birth rate crisis or the ludicrous male to female ratio after China's one-child policy. The China one-child policy will have a temporary effect. It will just be an effect of the children that they have removed, but evolutionarily it will restabilize to 50-50. As far as the Japanese birth rate, although it can be worrying at the individual level, I mean, we talked about the herbivores, that's a worrying phenomena, but at the population level, it's normal and understandable, and it's going to regularize because you cannot keep growing the population of Japan. It's a freaking small island. And so what we see is a natural occurring phenomena, which is the reduction of a population that in an overpopulated country. Sean Taylor says, can you elaborate on the winner effect frame? I saw you mention it on a stream once, and I think it is heavily involved in the cycle of incel depression.
Oh, absolutely. So the winner effect is a well-documented effect that predicts the level of baseline testosterone levels that men experience on the basis of their win-loss track record, so to speak. So basically, in response to victory, you experience a surge in testosterone levels briefly, and then you reset to a baseline that is nudged in a direction up or down, depending on whether or not it was a win or a loss in something that you perceived as being significant to your sexual market value or social standing. So an example of this is if JF and I were to play Thummy Wars right now, if we didn't care about the Thummy War thing, then we would be unaffected in terms of our neuroendocrine system or our testosterone levels after the match. But if this was like a touted up match, if we spent 3 months promoting this Thummy War cage match, and I was training with like a professional Thummy War expert and doing, 6 days of like Thummy weight training, and so was JF, and it came down to it, and we were live streaming it in front of 10,000 people, and JF defeated me he just crushed me in front of everyone. What you would see is the following neuroendocrine cascade. There would be a surge of, the catecholamines in JF's body. You'd have the dopamine, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine. You would see rising serotonin levels and feelings of well-being, and you would see notably immediately an acute increase in testosterone levels, but then a persistently increased chronic elevation until the subsequent event happened that moderated that up or down. So what happens is if you have successive wins, even if they're in games of chance, like they did this with like card games, you see a measurable increase in testosterone levels. And this happens to dovetail extremely well into another side effect of high testosterone levels, which is extremely aggressive policing of threats to your status. High testosterone people absolutely hate to lose. And to the normal testosterone range individual, it looks completely irrational how out of their way, how, throwback and, to evolutionary ancestral they seem to get to put out a modest threat or slight to their status. But this can be explained in the neuroendocrine sense, in that they are trying to prevent their neuroendocrine banana from being eaten. The momentum is what sustains the neuroendocrinology. Your body experiences real-time feedback and modulates your hormone and neurotransmitter activity levels on the basis of your perceived place in the social standing that you're in. Does that make sense?
That's very interesting, because testosterone has a lot of good effects on people, including on creativity. They tried injecting testosterone in women, and beyond having hairs growing on their boobs, they did have a surge in creativity. So I guess that this could lead to a kind of reinforcement where one win leads to another, and one win leads to more creation and more winning. It could be white pilling if it wasn't that the social world of human is one of competition. It is one where every winner leads to losers. Sometimes one loser in a one-to-one match, sometimes many losers in a tournament structure. And so because of that reality, I am not white pilled by this testosterone winner effect.
Yeah, and then there's also, the nature of the incel community is, it's a lot easier to go from 1 to 10 than it is to go from 0 to 1. Just to get a win when you are, a sort of mundane mat character or something, it's very hard. It's a struggle for that. And even when you do win, you don't perceive it as part of a narrative of winning that primes your body to ascend to sexual maturity. And this is where we finally get to the male African chicklet. Can I just tell this story, Jeff? It's so fascinating, and it really.
Well, I want to read the super chat. Can you do it after? Francis Bine says, just for the fun of it, could you teach Frame Game to say bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, madame? I think he already knows.
Bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, madame.
Smug Diogenes says, incel is a state of mind. Man is both the marble and the sculptor. Martianius Valerius sends $10. Thank you so much. He says, dual mating strategy. 1. Women need a man with good genes, aka good looks. 2. women also need security, aka resources. If you have one of the two or none, getting cucked is just a matter of time. Very interesting thinking here. He's suggesting that in face of the polygamous female desires of the modern time, men have to respond by being overall good, by not just having the looks or just having the resources, but having both. I guess it's a good tip if you can do that. Good Times
Yeah, nice work if you can get it.
Yeah. Big if true. Big if you can do it. The real question here is who had sex with the ugly Neanderthal woman? I don't know if the Neanderthal women were ugly. I like to imagine a beautiful Neanderthal woman who would have been an object of desire, like a special unicorn giving you special genes. I don't know. I like the idea. Defillion says,
what do you say about my great grandma? What do you say?
Defillion says, walking the streets of Montreal as a single man, when can I see so many beautiful white girls dating black dudes is quite depressive. Jeff, what is your trick to find a girlfriend so quickly? The trick to find a girlfriend so quickly is to keep acting like every woman wants you. It is to work in an industrial fashion. I have the statistics here, actually. I mean, I won't pull them, but I was reviewing statistics. Essentially, there it is. This tells you what to do. All right. So, 121 conversations on Tinder. 95 of them will be stopped before anything. This will only lead to 26 dates. So if you want one relationship, you need about 121 contacts. Then on 26 dates, it will result 9 times out of 26 where there's no mutual interest and you can know it right from the start. When the date goes well, it's only in about 10% or 15% of the cases. And even half of those cases will not lead to sex. Sex will occur only in half of those cases. We're down to 7 or 8% of your dating attempts. And 8 times out of 9, the sexual relationship will be the end. And there will be no long-term relationship developing. So if you want one relationship, you need to start 121 conversations on Tinder, get involved into 26 dates, and you will eventually get a girlfriend. This is depressing because essentially it would encourage an incel to say, well, is it really worth the effort? Now, as far as my trick, because you ask what my trick is, I don't have to go through this process because I have what I call the waiting list. Women can write to me and I put them on a waiting list. I explain to them I'm a very loyal person. Not only am I very sexy, I'm also very loyal. And so I cannot betray my current girlfriend. However, I can add you to a list if you want. And when my girlfriend leaves me, I will be able to go fuck you. Now, that's the waiting list system. It's not available to anyone. You have to be a YouTuber or something of the kind. But that's why I don't have to go through 121 Tinder contacts. Martianus Valerius says, look up Saint Black Ops to Cell, the god of incels. You think he could ever get a girlfriend? It's over for him, boyo. In fact, it never even began. Producer Chris sends $50. Thank you so much. He says, women have an advantage in American life, not equality. Just because the top 12,000 men in America are richer than the top 12,000 women in America doesn't matter for the majority population, where men have a much tougher life in all regards. Well, on the first statement, yes, the fact that men are the kind of acquirers of goods and the owner of property and the kind of geniuses that do perform well in the private sector, because there is a lot of variation within men. That's why we have the polygamous female desires of today, because a female then has advantage in being rotating between males to find the best, to get the best sperm, and then potentially go down to a man who will either go up on the ladder where the female gains confidence in herself, and at some point she realizes, oh, now I have more confidence in myself, I could get better sperm, or go down on the ladder and settle with a man who will provide minimal resources for her, while having brought into her the sperm of the most successful men for whom all the females want to compete. On your second statement, men have tougher life in all regards. That is absolutely true. They end up in jobs that women couldn't do, and these jobs happen to ruin their health and stuff. So yeah, that's true, but I'm not sure I see the link between these 2 points. Frank Underwood sends 100 knock. Thank you so much. He says, when incels give up bettering themselves, they make the incel statistic a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they were to never give in, the statistics would be different. That's kind of the white pill discourse, but I know that incels take it as a morally presumptuous statement, because what do you know about it? That's what they would tell you. What do you know about how hopeful my situation is? And I do not join you, Frank, and I do not join Frame Game in this moral condescension, because I have to face the fact that yes, there may be people who are justifiably and truthfully thinking that they are worthless on the sexual market. Trump Calf says, is it possible to have a monogamous society, or will the chads always cuck the betas? Is social pressure enough to change female nature? So on social pressure, yes, social pressure of a very extreme kind, like religious indoctrination, can get our societies to a more monogamous lifestyle. You just look at the statistics of marriage in 1920 and how they changed over the decades up to now. Yes, we could maintain females into a stable state 100 years ago. We lost it. We lost this ability, but we had it. Now, it's probably not just the religious authority that was applying there. Probably the economic system, the legal system, and the general fact that life was harder. It was harder to survive for a woman 100 years ago than it is now. And so, yes, the more there are services that allow women to survive on their own, the more they are incentivized to leave marriages. Now, is it possible to have a monogamous society? I say yes, if you have enough alligators in your environment. What you need is danger outside. Because if there is no danger outside, women will converge toward the polygamous male rotating pattern of choice. Anything to add up to now, Frame Games?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, even there, what you have is mean reversion to the human condition. And the human condition is that the chads will always cuck the betas, but the betas will always live longer, right? So you've got these two things that are sort of at loggerheads. The chads,
where do you get that the betas live longer?
Oh, well, I mean, that's observed in nature. You see that in chimpanzee cultures. You actually see the beta males actually have a longer average lifespan. Whales in captivity live longer than whales in the wild.
Yeah, but those are all societies in which the dominant monkey is getting targeted violently. So he's dying early because he gets killed. Is it the case in human societies?
Well, sure, because testosterone levels are correlated with all sorts of things that reduce long-term longevity metrics. Okay, high testosterone levels is correlated with hypertension, heart disease, stroke. I mean, the jeopardized immune system, tumorous cancer cells. The list goes on and on and on. High T is a very double-edged sword, and so what you see is, and by the way, high testosterone levels are correlated with unemployment. Now, yes, you do have these, big, bright, the Don Trump, big swinging dick chads who just go through their entire lives, never missing a shot, just fucking never missing a shot. Okay. Those people exist in the same way that mundane Matt exists that never makes one. Okay. You do have these ones and tens, but like the human, what we're talking about is this trade-off, like it's not. First of all, I wouldn't think of beta as a fixed state. It is a transient one that has some fluidity to it, where you can be a beta, in sort of shades, and then have your moments where you emerge as in an alpha sort of period, and then you mean revert back to being beta, and all of this is in flux. But this happens with a lot of alpha guys. They're riding high. They're banging other people's girlfriends. And then suddenly it's not funny anymore that they don't have a job. It's not funny anymore that they're the bad boy, but they're 35. It's like these things happen, and then the curves get inverted. Like there is a game theory, hawks and doves,
I love the
sort
Hawk and
of
Dove game.
elegant math to it all. Yeah. So
That being said, I do agree
answer.
that the beta is not a fixed state. In fact, I don't even think that the beta is a beta on himself. I think the beta is a beta because of the society around him. It's essentially the selection pattern of the woman against him more than himself.
Wait, could you say again?
Well, essentially, I'm saying the betas are not born betas, or they are born in a certain way, but it just so happens that in that certain way, on the market of the sexual selection at that time, it places them in the position of a beta. In other words, I don't see the position as beta as an inherent thing. I see it as a relationship between the individual and the entire population of women that may choose or not choose him.
Oh, certainly.
All right. Marty Crew says, when is the frame game versus JFG Tomby War? I kind of want to see this now. Ragnar Ulfbert says, like when a small bug scares a muscle head, most first reactions is to immediately kill it just because it did scare them. Dub Scratch sends $2. Thank you. Marty Crew sends $10. Thank you so much. He says, testosterone has always seemed like some magical chemical that helps make me who I am and that I know nothing about. What are some efficient ways of obtaining more of this magical chemical in before steroids? I don't know the artificial way. Oops, let me just.
Is that a landline?
No, yeah, it's kind of a landline that I connected, but I don't want
retro.
it. I didn't even want it. I don't know why I connected this line. Anyway, it was more that I was attached to getting the internet as fast as possible, and I was like, oh yeah, put the phone, I don't care, just come to my home and give me the internet. And so now I have a phone, and the people who call me are not even my family or my friends, because I gave this phone number to no one. Anyways, so Marty Crew, on increasing testosterone, I don't know much about how to do it artificially. I guess that there are supplements. I guess that there are ways where you can physically, if you do physical exercise, it may help. Do you have any idea, Frame Games?
Yeah, there's a long list. I mean, you should really, the internet is totally littered with this stuff. I mean, a short list include, meat-based proteins, avoid things like soy, anything that produces estrogen, because there's an inherent trade-off between testosterone and estrogen levels. Interestingly, there's also a trade-off between testosterone and oxytocin levels, which is one of the reasons that high testosterone men don't form long-term pair bonds with women, or at least it's much harder to do so, because the actual long-term pair bonding chemical is impeded by the presence of large quantities of testosterone. In fact, this is one of the reasons that high testosterone men don't care for their kids. They don't actually get that infusion of oxytocin or vasopressin that actually binds you, chemically to the child. If you lesion a rat mom when it's giving birth, so that it doesn't produce an association of oxytocin with the child, it won't treat it like a child. So be careful what you wish for is what I would say on that. But a short list is eat well, anaerobic exercise, be social, get validated, and also engage in like persistent reframing of everyday losses as a win. Like, think of it like never take a loss. Like, anytime you lose in something, reframe it as like, that was a win because it taught me this, and never let the bastards grind you down, so to speak.
I was on a research project that was trying oxytocin to cure autism in children, and I had this bottle of oxytocin that I could spray in air, and I breathed it for like 1 hour. I wanted to know what the maximal oxytocin effect could be on me. It did nothing.
What
I felt nothing.
was it, like the appropriate dosage? I mean, that sounds.
It was not the appropriate dosage. It was the maximal possible dosage. I mean, if oxytocin could kill, I would know it because I would be dead. And it did nothing on me. I was just as autistic.
There's no cure. And why would you want one?
Why would you want one? Alfonso Beltran says, don't eat the French fish, their poisson. Also, Quebec pancakes give me the creeps. The cripes. Oh my god, it's full of word games in there. All right, we are done with the super chat. Was there something you wanted to explore before we look at some incel forum post?
I'll save it. I'll keep my powder dry.
All right.
Take me deeper, JF.
So this has been posted recently. So they have sections that are like black pill, science pill, and evolution pill, and this is the three sections at the same time. So get ready for some black pill, which is also a science pill, which is also an evolution pill. And he says, why women prefer Chad? Because these guys spend their days posting about theories to explain what's happening in society. And I think they're touching upon some truth there. He says it's very simple. Men are designed to impregnate as many females as possible. We are all men here, and if we had the chance, we would fuck every hot woman walking past us in the streets. We would breed them all. It is evident as we are designed ready to spread our seed every 5 to 10 minutes or so. And some men have no refractory period at all. In the past, the strong Chad could easily overpower women and rape them, but that wasn't necessary as the woman naturally flocked to him. But when it was necessary to rape a female from another tribe, he could easily do so, and the woman would be stuck with his child. But women have to spend 9 months pregnant. Women in the past, which is the default state of humanity, didn't have access to maternity and childbirth assistance. They would more often than not die as they were a big, fat, slow-moving target or simply died during childbirth. Thus, they wanted to make sure to at least carry Chad's seeds to term. Even if she dies, her genes live on in Chad's son. She obviously did not want to carry an incel seed to childbirth to then die and have an incel born. Just like in our other...
All right. Let me tell you something. I am not impressed with this performance, okay? This guy's power levels are not super high, all right? Let me just, like, start in, because you frame this as, like, a black pill, but also the science pill. Very clever to try to claim the high ground and just the science pill is yours. But we're going to split that. We're going to split the baby on that, all right? First, when he says some men don't have a refractory period. Oh, my God. Okay, this is the kind of statement you make, I guess, if you're not like used to actually.
This is an incel.
Where you experience refractory period.
Be understanding. This is an incel. This guy doesn't get his dick sucked 5 times a day, and so he hasn't experienced testicular pain of that kind.
But you know what? I'm going to treat him with the dignity of a man. Okay, this is tough love. All right.
Okay.
No kitty gloves. This is welcome to the real world. All right.
Yeah. Listen to me, Diogenes. Listen to me. Men cannot have sex more than 5 times a day without it starting to hurt a lot.
Oh, contraire, mon frère. I have an interesting theory to posit to you, which is a well-documented effect in science, exclam on either side, which is called the Coolidge effect. So there is a famous effect. The Coolidge effect is a biological phenomenon in animals where males exhibit renewed sexual interest whenever a new female is introduced to have sex with, even after cessation of sex with prior but still available partners. So let me break that down. That is the phenomenon of not being sexually aroused with willing sexual partners, but as soon as a novel woman is introduced, you immediately are rejuvenated with totally fresh sexual systems. And it gets its name from a anecdote that President Coolidge and his wife were, as the story goes, touring a local farm in one of the cities they were campaigning in. And the farmer said to was showing them the chicken hen hut, and Mrs. Coolidge asked a question that was basically like, she noticed the hens were mating, and they said, and the farmer said something like, well, the hens, they mate up to 40 times a day. And as a snide remark, she said to the farmer, tell that to Mr. Coolidge. So the farmer goes to President Coolidge and says, Mrs. Coolidge wanted me to say male hens have sex with 40 times a day, and Calvin's response was it with the same hen? And what that's designed to, like, the purpose of it is that when you see the Coolidge effect explains how animals, depending on their sort of discounted cash flow analysis of their projected lifetime fuck earnings, will actually fuck themselves to death if an opportunity presents itself that they will never see again. So I'll give you, there's actually an interesting, I don't know, there's documented cases of like guinea pigs that will have sex, who they have refractory periods as well, but like there was one, I think it had sex like with 46 different females that were like sequentially introduced until it just died. And this is particularly prevalent in windfall sexual events where the organism has a life experience that has given rise to an aggregate perception that never in its life will it have so much sex that it can have this night or on this day. And you will make a long-term, short-term trade-off, right? You will go through the energy expenditure. You will basically go into debt in terms of, how much you're sort of damaging your body to not go through that healing period. But that's what he's referring to. It's not that some guys do. It's that all guys have a refractory period that modulates on the basis of the short-term and long-term nature of the relationship and their experience with that partner. Because you habituate sexually. Sorry.
I'm willing to take your argument on this, but this only counters his pre-assumptions at the beginning of the post. And to be honest, it doesn't really address his main thesis. His main thesis is when females were in the default state of humanity, they were incurring much more risk into having a baby. So having a baby might have been your last baby, because you would find yourselves at risk of death. The baby could die, the mother could die. And so he's positing a past of humanity in which sexual selection, precisely for that reason, was more interesting. And he's presumably saying in modern society, where the risk of death is lowered, then there are less incentive for women to get only the child, but they can now go through the roulette of various men in a kind of non-discriminatory fashion.
Oh, certainly. I mean, and part of that is, another tragedy of globalism, right? I mean, like the less local your tribe, the less social enforcement you have. You can just that's the zip code phenomenon, right? It's like it's not cheating if it's not in the same zip code, and there's the human biological response is like it is sort of a function of geography in a certain sense. When somebody is distant, you may perceive them as being still in your heart or totally dead. Depending, you'll have a totally different biological response in your body, depending on that perception. But that wasn't the case when you lived in the Dunbar number 150 person tribes, back in the ancestral tundra. So, but I guess the main thing that I wanted to sort of respond to is like, he starts it off with this premise that like the goal is to fuck. And, it's kind of like somebody who is like romanticized, someone who's like allergic to chocolate, who's like romanticized it beyond all proportion, right? They think it's going to solve all of their, they have writer's block. They think if only they could experience the joy of chocolate that everyone else could, like it'll solve all of their life problems. Earlier in this conversation, I detected a little chortle when we talked about the gay uncle theory in menopausal women, and I've meant to circle back to it, and I think now is the time to take it head on. What is the problem with the gay uncle theory, in your view?
It's not a problem. It's a valid theory. So the theory is stated more generally than the gay uncle hypothesis. More generally, it is predicted that people share portions of their genes. So if you're a cousin, you share a certain percentage. If you're a brother and sister, you share a bigger percentage. And so the genes that are in one body have not only reasons to care to maintain that body, they also have reasons to care for the evolutionary success of those people who share a small portion of the genes. Because if I'm a gene in JF, there's a chance that there's a copy of me in JF's brother gene, in JF's brother genome. And so I might as well not only care for the survival of JF, but I might care for the copy of me that is most likely present in JF's brother. So that's a valid theory. I hate applying this to human societies first, because I think it's an overreach in terms of the way Richard Dawkins and others have employed this. It's an overreach, and I don't think it is very strongly demonstrated that kin selection has led to our social abilities. Now, that's one point. Now, the reason I cringed a little bit at you bringing that as a kind of white pill in the incel situation is that the only way in which this theory works is through a big social network and essentially children being cared for by vast communities of people. And I'm too autistic for that. It's like the gay uncle who would try to care for my children. I would say, fuck off. Get your own children.
So not only do you take a village with JF, it's I'm going to light your village on fire. Stay the fuck away from my kid.
Yeah. No, because you open the door to non-parental caring of children, and I hate this. And this is the path we're on. So it's not like you are beside the track. You are proposing what motivates leftists into thinking that the children are the property of the community, and it's the community's role to educate them. Get the fuck away from our parental rights, you fucks. You're about to start a revolution. People are going to get tired of having their children taken by the grandmother, by the grandmother, by the uncle, by the aunt, in courts, by family courts, by child protective services. Get the fuck away from our children. It's not your responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess just getting back to this statement, I mean, there's a lot of things that I agree with, but they're just kind of truisms. Like, they're just basic statements of like Evo Psych 101. But like this premise that like, okay, men are designed to impregnate as many females as possible. Yeah, I don't know. I don't take that as my starting premise. I think that there is a delicate dance between mating effort and dating effort, and between reproductive effort and parenting effort. And that theory does not explain why you don't just perennially knock up your wife and have 30 kids. Like, explain that one, Diogenes. Is it just that they have to be different women? Why can't you sequentially impregnate the same woman over and over and over again? If your sole concern is just quantity of sperm, where the goal is the whole, as someone in the chat said.
Well, I'm gonna have to stand in defense of Diogenes here, because I believe you are strawmanning him. You are attacking a strawman. Diogenes didn't state that it was in the interest of the male to rotate along women. He says, as far as the male biology tells us, we see that it's essentially a penis capable of creating children every 5 minutes. Now, he didn't say in every circumstances, therefore, the male will try to fuck with every woman. Of course, in the Diogenes axioms, if you will, you could very well be in an isolated part of a nation. You could have lands. You could have such separate and distant lands that fucking the same woman over and over again for 30 years may be a stable solution. I don't think he counters this. I don't think he disagrees with this. He didn't state anything in that post that makes me believe that he's saying that males are a never rotating partner in sex. However, the fact is that women are in our current societies, they have rotational preferences, and so you attack him on the men's side, but he hasn't stated this on the men's side.
What am I missing? The very first sentence reads as follows: men are designed to impregnate as many females as possible. I don't agree with that premise. I think that if that is your first principle, you are going to get fucked later down the line when you start actually dealing with the trade-offs that men make, particularly successful men who have sexual choice, but don't go, like suicidally overboard with it to the point where all they're doing is impregnating people and not actually taking care of other of other considerations, including the welfare of their family, their extended family, their children, the mimetic value of contributions to the world. There are lots of things that can have a higher total aggregate value than the pure depositing of seed. And this is where we get.
You did not just invoke the mimetic value of contributing to the world.
We did it. It's on the table. Because here's the thing, man. Riddle me this. Explain the Volcel phenomenon then.
What's the Volcel?
Voluntary celibates, right? So I thought there was like this civil war between like the incels and the Volcels. Like have you tried like no fap and like all the Stoics? I mean, there's so many instances of great men of history. Nikola Tesla. I don't know if he was an incel or a Volcel, but he never had sex. There are a lot of people who, for a variety of reasons, have great men. We're not just talking about mundane Matts here. Great men of history who have voluntarily forsaken this biological design. No, I have a different theory of what's going on here, which is that there is a reactive feedback loop, and the body makes real-time decisions about which track to activate on the basis of expected future value discounted to the present, depending on whatever your discount rate, your time preferences. So what I mean by that is impregnating females is not all there is. It's not what we're necessarily designed for. We are designed for it much more than women are. The biological drive is strong, particularly during adolescence. No one can deny, 18 to 25-year-olds or whatever. I'll tell you a quote from my grandfather. It's interesting. He says, when you're young, you drive it's called 1,000 miles. Okay. He says, he's told me when you're young, you drive 1,000 miles just to have a good fuck. When you're middle-aged, you drive 1,000 miles just to have a good meal. And when you're old like me, you drive 1,000 miles just to take a good shit. And what it means, the lesson of that is not that old men don't have these like horny, whatever sexual reactions and don't want to also spread seed, but it's that these drives are tempered by other considerations, different things. Your utility curve for sex changes. The average male enters a period of seeking to provide and of extending the network over which he has influence as he enters middle age. And it's nice. More is generally merrier, but there is a trade-off point where it's not worth it anymore. Otherwise, you just have sex with all the ones, all the three-headed she-beasts. Why would you not do that if you were simply designed to impregnate as many females as possible?
Well, Frame Games, Okay, on your attack of the phrasing of the Diogenes, maybe it wasn't wise of him to phrase it that way, but I wouldn't reproach it to him. I don't know that he's a scientist. And so, yeah, maybe as many female as possible, he shouldn't have phrased it that way. That being said, on your whole speech there, you misinterpret everything. Yes, the whole goal of life is making babies. The reason why Tesla was maniacally pursuing his dream of creating inventions is that his genes, they called it a variable shot. They looked at the genes, they look at the space of society, and they say, well, if I'm an inventor, I'm going to be able to fuck 50 females. And so it's worth the shot, even if it doesn't work in a particular individual. So we are constantly seeing the misfirings and the proper firings of genes that are trying to make us better in society. And yes, the accountability of it is down to the number of babies you're gonna have and the number of babies they're gonna have. And it is the only criteria by which we evolve and the only criteria by which we make decisions that are either valuable or not valuable for our genes. Now, as far as Volcel goes, I think that Volcels is a separate phenomenon. I think that Volcels may be seen as many things. First, many of them are just old people, and so they are not functionally reproductive. If you're a 50-year-old guy, whether you want to have a girlfriend or not does not matter from a biological perspective, unless you want to date very young women who will be much younger than you, which is only possible if you are extremely successful in some way, or you are so attractive that even the young women want you to inseminate them. Now, as far as the Volcel in general goes, I think that they can be seen as misfiring of other biological processes. The same way condoms are an aberration from an evolutionary perspective, unless they help contribute to better sexual selection, which may be the case in the long run. But for now, condoms are an obstacle to reproduction, and yet they are getting used a lot. And so Volcel are expected to emerge simply because the genes, they create brains that are capable of making decisions, and they try to make brains that make the best decisions for reproduction, but they sometimes fail, and sometimes it leads to gay lifestyles or non-reproductive lifestyles of any kind, including Volcels.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add?
I do. I think this was an example of the scorpion's tail. If I were to accept your first premise, then what you said makes sense. But I think there was a starting error in the way it was described, because you said it was making babies. And my theory of I guess my worldview and what I'm sort of advocating here is based on a very different starting premise, that it's not making babies, it is promoting babies. Now, that may seem like just a distinction without a difference, but it's actually an axis on which an entire world turns, because making babies involves direct sexual reproduction, whereas promoting babies means the inclusive fitness and any indirect assistance you provide to anyone who shares degrees of biological relatedness to you, and engaging in behaviors that promote your total inclusive fitness in ways that may be potentially much bigger than your own direct fitness by passing on one single child. So I'll give you a few examples real quick. Okay. So
no, I mean, we've talked about it, so we don't need examples. So the inclusive fitness is true. You are correct. But I will challenge that. I will challenge the importance of this by simply saying we don't have much evidence that much of human societies has evolved for inclusive fitness. And as far as I know, if I look at brother and sisters, they're kind with each other, but I don't know that they actively participate in a regular fashion to the evolutionary success of the babies, of the nieces, and whatever else is for males. I don't remember.
Okay,
Nieces and
nephews.
nephews, exactly.
Okay, can I engage in a little bit of a Socratic method questioning here for a second?
Okay.
Because I just your principles on this, because this is a really, I'm just independently interested in this topic, and I really want to just like try trade ideas on this. So if the purpose of men, or men are designed to make babies or promote babies or whatever, what is the purpose of women?
The purpose of women is to make babies.
So how do you explain menopause?
Well, menopause is a hard thing to explain. It may be that menopause hasn't evolved. It may just be the case that people were dying early enough in their life throughout humanity's history that we didn't have many females reaching menopause. So that's a first explanation.
Sorry. Okay, go on.
So in that explanation, menopause has not evolved. Menopause is like cancer. It just shows up at a time where we have not yet been selected to make babies for that long, because we don't have enough ancestors that lived as long as this. The second hypothesis is menopause is an evolved function. So it was better for females to stop making babies at some point. Now, the explanation for this could be the relative great investment that is needed for already existing children. And it may be that nature has decided the risk of dying at this point of your life from having a baby is so high that it's going to keep you from being a good parent for your already existing children. So in that case, menopause would have evolved for the trade-off between the risk of dying of the mother and the parental investment on the already existing children.
You have walked into my trap. Okay. The killer whale. Killer whale. So the theory that people who, I guess, that your sort of first premise rested on, or first theory rested on, was that the lifespan of the average human was not substantially longer than menopause, and so civilization is basically a super stimulus, that is not that we've not yet evolved to catch up to, and that but for civilization we would menopause is would not be, we wouldn't have it, or we'd evolve in a different way to push it back, or whatever. Killer whales have menopause as well in their 30s and 40s and continue to live for decades and decades afterwards. Why? Because there is a matriarchal system in the killer whale, animal hierarchy, their way of life, where as menopausal female killer whales dedicate the next decades of their lives to assisting with grandchildren, to basically being the oceanic tour guide, defending them, being charitable towards them. And it is the same thing you see in the vast increase in philanthropic contributions you see in postmenopausal women. And in fact, there's a very interesting war that happens at menopause. I've read some interesting accounts of the
Philanthropic. You're going to
contributions. Yeah.
invoke a philanthropic explanation in an evolutionary discussion? You're killing me, Frame Games. You are my killer whale.
JF, I would love to be your killer whale. I will be your killer whale. Okay, so the point is, what we were just talking about, which I am forgetting. I'm distracted. I'm picturing
You fell in my trap, Frame Games. I'm playing mind tricks on you. I'm playing the Frame Game on Frame Game.
Okay, well, I will reframe it then. Okay, we were talking about, and we were talking about philanthropy, and you were trying to, I think, angle me into the semantic trap that because there's no such thing as altruism under a natural and sexual evolution sense of kin selection, and basically under an evolutionary theory, selfish gene sort of Dawkins, theory of the world. There's no such thing as altruism, and so there's no such thing as philanthropy. So you can't even
No,
be a
no, no, friend
philanthropist. Even
game. I want to be clear here. I'm not contesting the evolution of altruism. I'm saying altruism is not necessarily explained through kinship theory, and a lot of the kinship theories that are invoked are merely hypothetical in human societies. All I'm saying on that is there are potentially other explanations than kinship selection. Now, it makes no doubt to me that a grandmother and our general generosity and involvement with the children makes total sense, both from a selfish gene perspective and from a kinship theory perspective, if you want to take it that way. Parental
well,
care, I don't deny it. So the problem is I don't know where you're headed with all this.
Oh, well, I don't think that you've adequately explained menopause. What we're talking about is the purpose, the grand unifying purpose of men and women, and the relative importance of the drive to reproduce versus to invest those same energies into other channels, such as the ones that Stoics and Volcels and potentially Incels have justified as their lot in life. That is the Nicole. I do not buy that Nikola Tesla was in it for the bitches. I don't buy it. I think that there are lots of people.
He was in it for the bitches. Even if he didn't know that, even if he didn't get women, that doesn't matter. The genes are in it for reproduction.
No, but you're skipping a step, because it's not for the bitches. It's for what the bitches produce, which are babies that are related to that individual.
Exactly. I thought that we were agreeing on this, on the fact that when I say make babies, I'm not even talking about the baby itself. I'm talking about the chain of infinite babies that will be thrown into the future frame game. I'm talking about a space-time independent view of chains of babies.
Like infinite chain of like babies like squared into dude, that's okay. So all right.
Yeah, and that's why orgasm feels that good. It's not that it's your genes don't think you're gonna have a baby. They see the infinite line of baby that you just thrown into the future.
It's interdimensional, like galactic space babies.
Absolutely. I don't know how we ended there in the conversation, but let's read the last few super chats. Producer Chris, the ancient ones knew only war and or strife could cure inceldom. I hate to say it, no strife, no wife. Otaku Bullfrog says, if you're rejected, just make it their loss. Nick O'Brien says, 10 years incel can 3D print WMDs, then what? I don't know that WMDs can be 3D printed yet. White male, we was killer whales and sheet. All right. And I wanted to read also this forum post because for those, we've talked about incels enough. I think that the audience understands, if they didn't know before, the fundamentals of this community. But this is also the kind of thing you see. So it's a poster who says, never even... He talks about a woman. Am I the only one on the entire planet of Earth who has literally never had any female contact whatsoever? Never even talked to one. Well, except my mom, but how the fuck does that count? They have never even glanced in my general direction before, except cashiers, because it is their job, I guess. I see all people here saying how they have talked to girls before, and it blows my mind. Literally, fucking how? They have never even acknowledged my existence. I have seen many, many below average and downright ugly guys speaking to them all the time, and in relationships, So clearly it's not a problem of looks. No ID. This shit is fucking rigged to the point of no return. I have never encountered a person with this problem before. Only I suffer from this. I'm willing to bet I'm the only one on the entire planet Earth who is like this. Never even exchanged a single word with a girl. Laughing my ass off. It never fucking began. Holy shit, you all mug me by default here.
What a truly epic contribution to the internet. This is a man who has literally searched all his life. He has scoured the globe and has been unable to actually physically locate a woman in time and space. He could not find the spatial coordinates of a double X chromosome. That's amazing. I'm impressed.
And that is the reality that some people are living, and these people have decided, as my concluding statements, these people have decided to regroup on a forum, and I don't see anything wrong with it. Personally, I won't do what The Guardian does and what the other big mainstream media do, which is associate these people with acts of terrorism. It's not because a single incel has done acts of terrorism or crimes that I will judge the entire forum, just like I wouldn't judge all Muslims because of a few acts of terror. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it's a legitimate community. They are, of course, in a very tough predicament. They have realized that it would never work between them and women, and it's a tough place to be. I'm reminded of what Richard Spencer had said to Sargon of Akkad. He had said, "You are less intelligent than you think you are," and it's a very tough place to be. They are in a tough place. They are in a place where they have realized that they were part of the they had the losing ends of humanity, and they will continue their existence without female relationships. It's a sad thing, and that's all I have to say as far as their evaluation of the truth. I think they're getting somewhere. I think their theories sometimes make sense. They have a good grasp of evolutionary knowledge, and they are just depressed about it because it's a depressing thing to be on the losing side.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, I will make a closing remark here for 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right, JF.
Yes.
You're not going to believe this, but you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up to say to your mother, this kid's going to be the best kid in the world. This kid's going to be somebody, better than anyone I ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you. Every day was like a privilege. And the time comes for you to be your own man, take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And that's when things got hard. And you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you down to your knees, and it will keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit you as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not point fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Frame Games, you want to know the truth?
I think I'm entitled.
You can't handle the truth.